Marcus Thompson spent his last $20 on an elderly woman's groceries, and when she made him an offer afterward, Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. The fluorescent lights of Save More Grocery buzzed overhead as Marcus stood in the checkout line, counting crumpled bills in his palm for the third time. $23.47. It had to be enough for the essentials: a loaf of bread, peanut butter, instant noodles, and a carton of milk that was almost expired, but 50 cents cheaper than the fresh one. At 22, Marcus had become an expert at stretching every dollar. He was in his final year of engineering at State University, working 3 part-time jobs: dishwasher at Tony's Diner, weekend landscaping, and tutoring high school kids when he could find clients. His parents had died in a car accident 2 years ago, leaving him with nothing but student loans and the determination to finish what he'd started. "Next," called the tired-looking cashier. Marcus stepped forward and placed his items on the conveyor belt. Behind him, he heard a soft gasp and the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. He turned to see an elderly woman struggling to pick up a bag of groceries that had split open, oranges and canned goods rolling across the dirty linoleum. The woman looked to be in her late 60s, wearing a faded floral dress and a worn cardigan that had seen better days. Her gray hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and her hands shook slightly as she tried to gather her scattered groceries. Other customers stepped around her, too busy with their own concerns to help. Marcus didn't hesitate. He stepped out of line and knelt beside her. "Let me help you," he said gently, gathering the oranges and canned soup. "Oh, thank you, dear," the woman said, her voice wavering with embarrassment. "I'm so clumsy these days." "Don't worry about it," Marcus replied, checking the torn bag. "Looks like you'll need a new bag." As he helped her stand, Marcus noticed her cart was full: fresh vegetables, quality meats, name-brand items that he could only dream of affording. But when she reached the checkout counter, her face fell as she rummaged through a small, worn purse. "I'm sorry," she said to the cashier, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I had more. Could you remove some items? Maybe the meat and—" Marcus watched her face flush with shame as she began to separate her groceries into keep and return piles. The keep pile was pathetically small, just bread, milk, and a few canned goods. "That'll be $47.83, the cashier said impatiently. The woman opened her wallet again, counting slowly. $27.50, she announced quietly. "I'm sorry, I'll have to put more back." "No," Marcus interrupted, stepping forward. "I'll cover the difference." The woman turned to him, her eyes wide. "Oh, no, dear, I couldn't." "It's okay," Marcus said, pulling out his $20 bill, money he'd planned to spend on his own food for the week. "Everyone needs help sometime." "But you were buying your own groceries." Marcus looked at his modest pile of items, then back at her cart full of real food. "Mine can wait." The transaction went through, and Marcus helped the woman load her bags into her cart. As they walked toward the exit, she kept thanking him, her voice thick with emotion. "Young man," she said as they reached the parking lot, "I don't know how to thank you. You don't even know me." "I know you're someone who needed help," Marcus replied simply. "That's enough." The woman studied his face for a long moment. "What's your name?" "Marcus Thompson." "Marcus," she repeated as if committing it to memory. "I'm Eleanor Williams, and you, Marcus, are a very special young man." She loaded her groceries into an old sedan that had seen better days. Eleanor turned back to him. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Why did you help me, really?" Marcus shrugged. "My grandmother used to say that how we treat people when no one's watching shows who we really are. Besides," he added with a slight smile, "I've been where you are. I know what it's like to have to choose between food and other necessities." Eleanor's eyes glistened. "You seem like you're struggling yourself." "College student," Marcus explained, "but I'll be fine. I always figure something out." As Eleanor drove away, Marcus realized he'd just spent his food money for the week. He'd have to pick up extra tutoring sessions, or maybe ask Tony for more dishwashing shifts. But looking back at the grateful expression on Eleanor's face, he didn't regret. The next morning, Marcus was walking across campus when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Marcus Thompson?" a crisp, professional voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is James Patterson. I'm calling on behalf of Williams Financial Group. Mrs. Eleanor Williams would like to meet with you today, if possible." Marcus frowned. "I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. I don't know anyone at Williams Financial. You helped Mrs. Williams with her groceries yesterday at Save More. She'd very much like to speak with you. Could you meet her at Riverside Cafe at 2 p.m.? Marcus's mind raced. The elderly woman from the grocery store? I guess so, but I don't understand. All will be explained when you meet with Mrs. Williams. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Marcus spent the morning distracted, barely able to focus on his engineering lectures. What could the woman possibly want? Maybe she wanted to pay him back for the groceries. He hoped not. He hadn't helped her for money. At exactly 2 p.m., Marcus entered Riverside Cafe, an upscale place he'd never been able to afford. He spotted Eleanor immediately, sitting at a corner table. But something was different. Her faded dress had been replaced by an elegant navy suit. Her hair was professionally styled, and she carried herself with an authority he hadn't noticed before. "Marcus," she said, standing to greet him. "Thank you for coming." "Mrs. Williams," Marcus said uncertainly. "You look different." Eleanor smiled. "Please, sit down. We have a lot to talk about." As they settled into their chairs, Eleanor studied Marcus's face. "First, I owe you an apology. Yesterday at the grocery store, I wasn't entirely honest with you." Marcus's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "The truth is, I didn't need you to pay for my groceries. I have more than enough money to cover them." "I don't understand," Marcus said, feeling betrayed. "You let me spend my last $20? "Because I wanted to see what kind of person you are," Eleanor interrupted gently. "And what I saw was someone who gave his last dollar to help a stranger with no expectation of reward." Marcus pushed back from the table. "You were testing me." "Yes, and you passed with flying colors." Eleanor leaned forward. "Marcus, I'm not just Eleanor Williams. I'm Eleanor Williams, founder and CEO of Williams Financial Group." The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Williams Financial Group was one of the largest investment firms in the state, managing billions in assets. He'd studied their business model in his economics classes. Marcus struggled to find words. "Worth about $2.8 billion, yes," Eleanor said matter-of-factly. "But yesterday, I was just a woman testing whether kindness still exists in this world." Marcus stared at her. "Why?" Eleanor's expression grew serious. "Because I'm getting old, Marcus. I've spent 50 years building my company, but I have no children, no family to leave it to. I've been looking for someone with the right character to help me with something very important. I don't understand what this has to do with me." "Everything," Eleanor said. "You see, I do this test regularly. I disguise myself as someone in need and see how people react. In the past year, I've tried this experiment 43 times. Do you know how many people helped me?" Marcus shook his head. 3. And of those 3, 2 helped only after I hinted that I might reward them. You were the only one who gave genuinely, sacrificially, without any expectation." A waitress approached their table, and Eleanor ordered coffee for both of them without asking what Marcus wanted. It was a small gesture, but it reminded him of the vast difference in their worlds. "Mrs. Williams," Marcus said carefully, "I appreciate you telling me this, but I'm not sure what you want from me." "I want to offer you an opportunity," Eleanor said. "A full scholarship to finish your engineering degree, plus a paid internship at Williams Financial Group. After graduation, if you prove yourself, I'll consider you for a permanent position with significant advancement potential." Marcus's mouth went dry. "A scholarship? Full tuition, room and board, plus a monthly stipend of $2,000 for living expenses." It was more money than Marcus had ever imagined having. It would solve every financial problem that had kept him awake at night for the past 2 years. "What's the catch?" he asked. Eleanor smiled approvingly. "Smart question. The catch is that you'll be watched closely. I need to know that your character is consistent, not just something you put on when it's convenient. Can you handle that kind of scrutiny?" Marcus thought about his crumbling apartment, his 3 part-time jobs, the constant stress of wondering how he'd pay next month's rent. Then he thought about the woman across from him, who had enough money to solve his problems but had chosen to test him first. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "Of course." "Why didn't you just help me yesterday? If you saw that I was struggling, why not just offer assistance without the test?" Eleanor's expression softened. "Because charity without character is just enabling. I've given millions to people who squandered it because they never learned the value of earning something. You, Marcus, already understand that value. My job is to give you opportunities, not handouts." Over the next hour, Eleanor laid out her offer in detail. The scholarship would start immediately, allowing Marcus to quit his part-time jobs and focus on his studies. The internship would begin the following summer, working directly with Eleanor's executive team to learn the business. "I have one condition," Marcus said finally. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "You're in a position to make conditions? I want to pay you back for the groceries, not right away, but eventually. And I want to continue volunteering at the food bank on weekends." "Why?" "Because if I forget where I came from, I'll become the kind of person who wouldn't help you in that grocery store." For the first time, Eleanor's composed businesswoman facade cracked, and Marcus saw genuine emotion in her eyes. "You know," she said quietly, "in 50 years of business, I've met with countless people who wanted my money. You're the first one who's tried to give me something bad." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the executive conference room of Williams Financial Group, presenting his analysis of renewable energy investments to the board of directors. His grades had soared once he could focus on studying instead of working multiple jobs. His internship had revealed a natural aptitude for financial analysis that impressed even Eleanor's most senior advisors. But the most important change wasn't professional. It was personal. Eleanor had become more than a mentor. She'd become the grandmother he'd lost when his parents died. She attended his graduation, celebrated his successes, and offered guidance when he faced difficult decisions. "Marcus," Eleanor said after his presentation, as the other board members filed out, "walk with me." They strolled through the executive floor, passing offices filled with people managing millions of dollars in investment. "Do you remember what I told you about character?" Eleanor asked. "That it's what you do when no one's watching." "Exactly. And in these 6 months, I've been watching you carefully. Your professors say you're brilliant. Your colleagues say you're hardworking. Your supervisor says you're honest to a fault." She paused. "But what impresses me most is that you still volunteer at the food bank every Saturday." "It keeps me grounded," Marcus said simply. Eleanor stopped walking and turned to face him. "I'm 69 years old, Marcus. I've built something that will outlast me, but I need someone to ensure it's used responsibly. Someone who understands that wealth is a tool, not a trophy." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I'm promoting you to junior partner, effective immediately. Your salary will be $200,000 annually, plus profit share. And I'm beginning the process of naming you as my eventual successor." Marcus stared at her, speechless. "The company will be yours someday, Marcus, not because you needed it, but because you earned it, not because you asked for it, but because you proved you'd use it wisely." That evening, Marcus sat in his new apartment, still modest by choice, but comfortable in a way he'd never imagined possible. He thought about the chain of events that had led him here, all starting with a decision to help an elderly woman pick up her scattered groceries. His phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Meet me at Save More tomorrow at 3 p.m. Time for your first lesson in practical philanthropy." Marcus smiled. Even now, Eleanor was still teaching him that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touched along the way. The next afternoon, Marcus watched as Eleanor, once again dressed in her modest floral dress and worn cardigan, accidentally dropped her grocery bag near a young mother struggling with 2 small children and a tight budget. Marcus hung back, observing, as the mother helped Eleanor gather her scattered items. When Eleanor went to pay and came up short, the young mother didn't hesitate to cover the difference with her own grocery money. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Eleanor whispered to Marcus as they watched the woman load her children into an old minivan. "Are you going to help her?" "We are," Eleanor corrected. "Tomorrow she'll receive a call about a scholarship program for single mothers returning to school. Anonymous donation, of course." Marcus nodded, understanding. This was how Eleanor had built her fortune, not just by making smart investments, but by investing in people who had already proven their character. As they drove away, Eleanor turned to Marcus. "The lesson isn't just about finding good people to help. It's about creating a cycle. That young mother will remember this moment, and someday when she's successful, she'll help someone else." "And it all started with kindness in a grocery store," Marcus said. "It always does," Eleanor replied. "The smallest acts of kindness create the biggest ripple." 2 years later, Marcus stood at Eleanor's funeral, delivering a eulogy to a packed church. She had passed peacefully in her sleep, leaving behind a financial empire and a legacy of quiet philanthropy that had touched thousands of lives. But more than that, she had left behind Marcus, a young man who understood that true success wasn't measured by what you accumulated, but by what you gave away. As the executor of Eleanor's will read the final provisions, Marcus learned that she had left him not just the company, but a challenge to identify and mentor the next generation of leaders who would put character before profit. That night, Marcus sat in Eleanor's old office, now his own, looking at a file she had left for him. Inside were the names and stories of 42 other people she had tested in grocery stores, coffee shops, and bus stops over the years. Some had failed the test spectacularly, others had shown promise but lacked follow-through. At the bottom of the file was a note in Eleanor's handwriting. True wealth is finding someone worth trusting with it. You are worth the wait. Marcus closed the file and picked up his phone. Tomorrow he would start his own tests, his own searches for character in unexpected places. Because Eleanor had taught him the most important lesson of all, that the best investments aren't made in stocks or bonds, but in people who understand that helping others isn't just the right thing to do. It's the only thing that matters.